If you and your SWAT team raided an abandoned warehouse and found the remains of a cult with their eyes gouged out, what would you do? This isn't even the craziest thing that happens, just wait till you see what's on the tapes that they've kindly left us with.
New world.
In this video, I'll be going over each horror story found on the tapes and explaining why you wouldn't survive any of them. We will attempt to come up with improved strategies to make better decisions than the ones made so you can decide for yourself whether you would be the cult worshipping the Rat Man, or the undead corpse, or the deranged doctor along with his lab subjects, or a white supremacist terrorist group leveraging the blood of a vampire. Whew, what a nightmare blunt rotation. Stick around to the end as each tape gets more and more horrifying than the last. Slater is spearheading a raid operation which they believe to be drug related. A distorted female voice welcomes them over the speakers, and as they venture into the warehouse they come across multiple people with their eyes gouged out along with a gloopy white substance dripping from the ceiling. If this isn't a sign they should call for backup, then I don't know what is. This gooey white substance seems to be an extreme biohazard risk which looks to have caused the mass suicide because I highly doubt it's ectoplasm. The team continue to advance further and they come across an array of TVs displaying a recording of a tape. We transition to the footage while first story brings us to Ohio. Only in Ohio will you find the news reporting about a supposed rat man that lurks beneath the town within the sewers. Holly and her cameraman Jeff are the lucky duo that get to cover this story. They interview the citizens of the town who claim to have seen the rat man lurking about. Just as they're about to wrap up their day, Holly's boss calls her and asks that they get footage closer to the sewage pipes where witnesses claim the rat man lives. Alright, here we are. You're thinking it, I'm thinking it. Do not go down there. If the prospect of waterborne diseases wasn't enough, Jeff then spots someone in the distance of the sewers behind Holly. Wait, was that also a growl? Religious motherfuckers punching the air right now because these two are about to prove Charles Darwin right. They venture deeper into the storm drains for more exciting footage and then come across evidence of people living down here. The fresh handprints on the floor also indicates that the dwellers are willing to crawl on all fours, and you can infer whatever the fuck you want from that, but if it were me, I'm getting out of there. You know this means two things, right? It's Rat Man or it's a sewer crackhead. These are two options I would rather not be faced with. Wait, who the fuck is this guy? Oh yeah, he's reason number 42 on why you should have turned around and left by now. Black liquid then begins spewing from his mouth and their survival instincts finally kick in and Jeff begins running, but when he looks back, Holly's missing. If I were Jeff and I realised that Holly was missing, I would be like, damn, that's crazy. Anyway, there is no way I'm going back in there to save Holly or even turning around to acknowledge her existence. I'm Forrest Gumping out there. Jeff's a better man than me though and turns around to look for Holly but gets jumped by some other dirty rat worshipper. They both then wake up surrounded by cultists somewhere deep within the depths of the sewers. We find out that the cult is led by none other than the man they interviewed earlier that day. Holly, doing what she does best, tries to bargain with them, offering financial support and to give them news coverage. You really think this brother with black slime coming out of his mouth needs financial support? He probably wants organs if anything. Despite what you might think, there may be a sliver of hope. Holly could give in to the cult-like behaviour or at least pretend to and say things like Hail Ratma. Shit, if it were me, I would be on my knees going all hail to King Ratma and say that the people above need to witness his greatness. We also know that their worshippers are allowed back to the surface because this guy here was interviewed earlier. This means after we pretend to be a devoted member of the cult and play along until we can leave, we can then load up with akimbo AK-47s and light this place up to smithereens. Unfortunately, this terrific idea falls short due to the fact that they actually have a selection process for new members. The cult leader summons the rat man named Ratmer by the way, and my god, what a beautiful creature. It spews black gloop from its mouth and the leader pours it on Jeff, which erodes him to death. He is therefore deemed unworthy. It's now Holly's turn. And we assume that she's worthy as it cuts to the rescuers pulling her out from the sewage system. Oh perfect, we got a happy ending and Holly seems healthy and back to news broadcasting. Oh. In the end, Holly and Jeff's room temperature IQ got the best of them. I thank them for their contribution to Darwin's theory of evolution, and with that being said, had they stayed the fuck away from the sewers and that dirty ass man and actually processed the many red flags leading up to their capture, they would have survived. But wait, you said we wouldn't survive any of these. You're right, but think about this. The cult has a supernatural rat creature on their side. It will only be a matter of time before they come up to the surface to wreak havoc. Not only do we not know whether the rat can even be killed, but the fact that the cultists along with the rat can project a black substance that will either insta-kill you or turn you into one of them like in Bird Box means that our chances of survival are very slim. Therefore, in the long run, Ratmer was unbeaten. The next footage begins to play and we are now taken to a funeral home where Hayley is assigned to host a wake for a recently deceased man named Andrew. As her boss and assistant leaves for the night, a violent thunderstorm begins brewing outside. Hayley then hears strange noises coming from the casket and notices that it's moved from its initial position. While I completely sympathise with how frightened she must be at the moment, this shouldn't be as worrying as it seems. Corpses have been found to move even 17 months after death due to calcium ions flooding muscle fibres, which causes them to contract in a process known as rigor mortis. As the storm outside worsens, a man enters the funeral home claiming to be a relative of Andrew's. He mutters an incantation then abruptly leaves, which is quite suspicious given the violent nature of the storm and for another reason I'll get to in a bit. The storm then causes the power to go off while the banging on the casket gets louder, which causes Hayley to try and leave, but the only exit is chained shut. And this is why that dude was sus as hell. He remained untouched from the storm and managed to leave through the chains. Anyway, Hayley returns to the main room only to find that the casket has been completely tipped over and empty. She spots the supposedly dead Andrew staring at a wall with half of his head missing. And, just like any sane person, she calls out and talks to him, offering him help.
Anyone? You stupid!
What are you doing? The corpse then attacks the shit out of her, but luckily it can't see due to its missing head. Perfect, now all we have to do is sit in the corner quietly and avoid eye contact with the head on the floor while weathering out the storm. Throw a couple bits and pieces to the other side of the room every so often if it aimlessly gets too close, and we should be good. Hayley then decides to approach the head, which somehow causes her to scream in shock. How has this shocked you after you've just been attacked by a headless corpse? Anyway, it makes eye contact with her, which in turn causes the corpse to pinpoint her location and attack her. At the same time, the storm outside turns into a tornado and strikes the funeral home. The tape then cuts to Hayley, now possessed by Andrew, crawling through the windows. In the end, Hayley was doomed to be put on a t-shirt regardless of the corpse due to the tornado. As for the corpse, it draws similarities to the clickers from The Last of Us, where they rely on sound, which is beatable. However, the incantation implies ritualistic involvements coupled with the chained exits limiting our escape options. Therefore, the undead corpse was unbeaten. Speaking of beating, why have you not beaten that subscribe button yet? Go slap it right now. Back in the interlude, the SWAT team discover body parts scattered across the floor and decide it's time to GTFO. They come across another TV which begins the next footage titled The Subject. This man-spider cyborg is just one of the latest inventions from the infamous Dr. Suhendra, who has been terrorizing a town in Indonesia for a string of kidnappings. What people don't know is that these people are being used as experiments in an attempt to create a half-human, half-cyborg hybrid. The two latest victims are named Subject 98, which is the man on the left, and Subject 99, which is the woman on the right. They undergo a lobotomy and their experiment proves to be a success. 98 gets turned into a large killing machine with massive blades for arms, while 99 becomes a fully functioning cyborg that can comprehend speech. Okay, we can't give any preventative advice without information on their circumstances leading up to being captured. There really isn't much we can do, but hope our captor makes a blunder. We also certainly shouldn't be talking shit to them, as we aren't sure how unhinged they are and they may end up cutting our tongues out or worse. Even if we do survive the procedure like 98 and 99, there is a massive risk of infection due to the interaction that certain metals have when exposed to our insides, especially when the procedure has been performed by a mad scientist in his underground lab. As a half-cyborg hybrid, I would attempt to tap into whatever new gadgets or tools we may have at our disposal, or at least try to explore any new abilities such as super strength in order to escape. Anyway, 99 recognizes herself on the news and tries to break loose, which results in the doctor beating her. They're then interrupted when the police arrive led by a commander, with the raid being recorded by an officer named Jono. Rather than arrest the doctor, they gun him down and the commander orders them to execute the subjects as well, despite Jono's reluctance. Before they can decide, 99 escapes and the doctor's voice over the intercom lets them all know that they done screwed up by coming here. They try to escape through the door, but it's rigged with explosives which goes off. If things couldn't get any worse for these policemen, they come across 98 who's bigger and badder than 99 and he begins slicing and dicing the officers. The commander then hurls a grenade at 98 which gives them enough time to escape for a different path. As this is going on, 99 traverses through the compound trying to escape and comes across a blueprint which unlocks a new ability on her skill tree. The new attachment allows her hand to become a fully functioning gun and grenade launcher, which then commences the most epic first person killing sequence I've ever seen. 99 goes on an absolute rampage that would send a Doomslayer into retirement as she viciously slaughters any police officer in her path. She then comes across Jono, who pleads for his life in exchange for guiding her out of the compound. She agrees, and as they're making their way out, the commander spots them and opens fire on 99 without hesitation. Jono sympathizes for her and in an act of treason guns down his commander. The final boss, 98, then comes out of nowhere and viciously cuts Jono in half. 98 repays the debt and rips 99's brain from its head before collapsing herself next to Jono. We then see that sometime later, a weakened 99 managed to get up and walk herself out of the facility. In the end, no one survived apart from 99, who will inevitably be shunned from society or most likely gunned down the moment she steps foot outside. 98 and 99 were doomed from the start to either die during the experiment or become a cyborg. As for the police, the same can be said the moment they were assigned to the raid. The doctor anticipated his eventual capture and rigged the facility, which would have most likely killed all the officers anyway. Even if the place wasn't rigged or they somehow avoided the traps, they now have to deal with being hunted by two cyborg killing machines that absorb bullets like a Destiny 2 boss. Therefore, I conclude by saying that the doctor and his subjects were unbeaten. Back in the framing story, we find out that two of the officers, Nash and Petro, are part of the cult and have killed off the rest of the team. Slater then begins losing his mind and suddenly collapses in front of a wall of TV screens and enters a trance which plays the next footage titled Terror. Our final story takes us to a snowy, secluded compound in Detroit. This facility is home to the First Patriots militia, who are a terrorist group with the goal to restore America back to its former glory. Their first plan of action is to blow up a government building, and their supplies are being funded by none other than Slater, the SWAT team leader. The militia is being led by a man named Greg, and their day-to-day activities are being recorded by Bob. Inside the compound, they hold a man captive who they shoot without hesitation. Very little he could have done while being chained up in a cage against 3 armed men. Anyway, after scouting out the government building, they return to the cage and somehow the man is still alive, but even more surprising is the fact that no one seems to be alarmed by this. It's as if they were expecting him to be alive when they returned. Turns out he's a vampire that they've captured, and his blood explodes when exposed to sunlight, which they plan to utilize on the government building. This is why they keep killing him and siphoning his blood over and over again. Need I say this, but you really think you can hold a vampire captive and not face any consequences? Oh, what could possibly go wrong? This isn't just any ordinary vampire as well, this is a vampire that you've severely pissed off. Anyway, later that night they test their new weapon by injecting the blood into a rabbit, which works according to plan as it explodes when the sun starts rising. They hold a party to celebrate this breakthrough, and the cameraman, while in his drunken state, asks the vampire guard if they can go in and mess with him. He reluctantly agrees, and as the saying goes, you fuck around and find out. The vampire projectile vomits its blood onto the guard, which causes the alarms to sound off. The next day, other militia members are found dead, and the guard, who was exposed by the blood, walks out of the base and instantly explodes. This prompts the remaining members to enter the compound and hunt the vampire. Unfortunately for them though, the vampire has evolved to its final form and munches the shit out of someone's head before disappearing back into the attic after being shot at. I understand the whole, oh, preserve the vampire because we need its blood in order to restore America to its former glory again, but may I remind you that this is a fucking pissed off vampire. I would blow this building up from a distance outside and let the vitamin D do the rest. Anyway, they decide to climb after it and only add themselves to the vampire's kill streak, which leaves Greg as the last man standing. Okay, he's not actually standing, he's on the floor at 1 HP. The vampire then drags him into the cage and then opens the roof to expose itself to sunlight, which kamikazes the whole base while destroying any chance of restoring America back to its former glory. In the end, this was another tape where everyone perished. Choosing to capture a vampire and relentlessly torture it will never turn out well. Even if the plan did go through, it wouldn't be long until the militia get apprehended and decimated by the Bureau. Therefore, I happily reached the conclusion that committing acts of terrorism was unbeaten. The scene then cuts back to the interlude where most of the SWAT team are now dead with their eyes gouged out. Slater is tied to a chair by Petro and Nash, who condemn him for providing supplies to the terror group. They then explain that they're part of a cult that creates snuff movies and Slater will be their next victim before beating him to death with the camera. And that just about wraps up all the VHS tapes. Let me know in the comments how you would have survived these horror stories and be sure to check out my other how to beats. Until next time, hail Ratma.